My name is Dale Ward, I'm a comedian and an artist, and I wrote a thesis about how Michael Myers from the Halloween movies is a Zen master. I called it Zen and the Art of Halloween, an analysis of Zen master Michael Myers. This video is chapter 5 of my thesis, and these are some of my Halloween paintings that will be appearing in the background. So let's get into chapter 5, which is titled Trick or Teach. My fifth proof of Michael Myers being a Zen master is that he is a teacher who helps people learn the ways of Zen, even when he doesn't intend to, which is very Zen. One of the main lessons taught in Buddhism is that life is suffering, and this lesson is also taught by Michael Myers on Halloween. Which means that the shape teaches Dharma through pain. Dharma is a Sanskrit word used in Buddhism to represent a fundamental truth or natural law of the universe, usually revealed through the teachings of Buddha or his successors. In the Buddha Dharma, one of the 3 marks of existence is called Duḥkha, which is a Sanskrit word often translated as pain or suffering. In other words, the Buddha taught that being alive goes with the inevitability of feeling pain, and the boogeyman teaches the same lesson. This means that to be alive is to experience pain, and therefore one could argue that to feel pain is proof of life. In this respect, the shape proves that you are alive, because Michael Myers is the shape of pain. But dukkha is more than just physical and emotional pain, it's all levels of suffering, frustration, and the unsatisfactory experience of living a mundane, never-ending, unenlightened existence. However, it's through suffering that Michael Myers ends your mundane, unenlightened life. Similarly, the Buddha said, quote, "I teach suffering and the cessation of suffering," end quote. Which is exactly what the shape teaches. The difference is that the boogeyman physically shows you suffering before he ends that suffering, because Michael Myers is the shape of suffering. Through his seminars on dukkha, the boogeyman teaches the Buddha's 4 noble truths by giving these lessons. 1. Pain exists. 2. Pain has a cause. 3. Pain ends. 4. There is a path that leads to the end of pain. To be specific, 1. You know that pain exists because 2. Michael Myers stabs you. Additionally, the physical pain of being stabbed comes with emotional suffering due to your frantic hope to escape the shape without being stabbed, but you simply cannot stop him. 3. The boogeyman teaches you that pain ends when he kills you. 4. The path that leads to the cessation of suffering is the path that leads to Michael Myers on Halloween. Whereas in Buddhism, the path is taught as the Noble Eightfold Path, which is comprised of 8 practices that lead to liberation. Moreover, a very important aspect of Buddhism, Zen in particular, is the unique transmission of such lessons from master to student. And Master Michael Myers directly teaches his students, victims! Life-altering lectures on pain, suffering, and death, all of which are very important lessons in Buddhism, especially death. Maraṇasati is a Pali word meaning mindfulness of death, and it refers to the Buddhist meditative practice of being mindful and aware that you could die at any moment. In the same way, the boogeyman is a literal constant reminder that death is always near. Therefore, Michael Myers is the shape of Maraṇasati because he forces you to be mindful and aware that death is close at all times. He could be just around the corner, lingering behind the bushes, sitting in your back seat, waiting in your closet, or standing right behind you in the darkness. The shape shows you that death is inevitable and can come for you at any time because Michael Myers is death incarnate. That being said, you should face him because facing death is very important in Zen and Buddhism in general. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha recommended cemetery contemplations in which you focus on 9 different stages of decomposition of a human corpse and then meditate on your own body inevitably being in those same states. Along the same lines, Michael Myers physically shows us the universal truth that every human body is vulnerable and will eventually be in those 9 states of decomposition. He just makes it happen sooner. In this way, Michael Myers is the shape of the future. The shape teaches that death is not an unnatural or negative event in the future that is to be put out of our minds, but something to focus on as a normal, inevitable, and essential part of our present reality. Zen monk D.T. Suzuki said, quote, "Death is what inevitably follows from birth. There is nothing ominous about it." End quote. Thus, it's clear that Zen masters totally and completely accept death as part of life. And Master Michael Myers merely makes us accept this truth as well, because Michael Myers is the shape of truth. The boogeyman teaches the truth about the transience of life. He gives us real-world experiences so that we don't just know, but truly feel and face the fact that everyone dies. Life does not exist without death, and nothing has ever lived that does not die. So the shape shows us that life and death are not opposing dualities, they are actually a unity of existence and experience. Therefore, life and death are one entity. To live is to die. I will talk more about this later, but in this respect, death can be seen as a proof of life. So this is yet another way that Michael Myers proves that you are alive. Or were alive. The word Halloween is a contraction of All Hallows Evening, meaning that October 31st is the night before All Hallows Day on November 1st, which is the observance of remembering the dead who were hallowed. November 2nd is known as the Day of the Dead, or Dia de los Muertos in Spanish, or All Souls Day, which is the commemoration of every dead person. Halloween, All Hallows Day, and the Day of the Dead are a 3-day triduum of death called All Hallowtide for remembering, commemorating, and celebrating the dead. And for the Celtic pagans, the evening of October 31st marks the beginning of the festival of Samhain, which is a massive celebration of autumn with a huge harvest feast, bonfires, and traditionally, the ancient burial mounds are opened and seen as portals to the underworld. So regardless of religious background, many people believe that Halloween is the time of year when the veil between our world and the world of the dead is thinnest, allowing the living and the dead to be reunited. And Michael Myers is really in the Halloween spirit of this celebration, because he literally reunites the living with the dead. Mostly by making the living dead. This further proves that Michael Myers is the shape of Halloween. As stated in the last chapter, everything is the universe. Therefore, when Michael reunites the living with the dead, he is simply reuniting the universe with itself through death. In other words, every Halloween, Myers reconnects people with themselves, which is precisely what a good Zen teacher does. Our great teacher and master, the boogeyman, teaches us to be our true selves, because death is a part of who we are. In fact, death is an extremely important part of who we are. Therefore, death is not a problem, it's the fear of death that's a major stumbling block on the way to enlightenment. So along with his Halloween lessons of Dharma through pain and death, the Shape also teaches Dharma through fear. It has been said that Zen is entirely about overcoming fear, which includes facing, accepting, and moving past the biggest fear of all, death. And Halloween is entirely about fear and death. So, on October 31st, Master Michael Myers teaches that pain and death are inevitable and unavoidable, but excessive suffering can be optional because it's the fear about pain and death that results in additional and unnecessary suffering and struggling. Duḥkha. Moreover, psychologist Viktor Frankl proved that it's more helpful to intensify fears and anxieties rather than avoid them, and that's exactly what the Shape forces us to do. Michael Myers makes you face fear by facing him, because to see the boogeyman is to see fear itself. In other words, Michael Myers is the shape of fear. If you ever happen to see the boogeyman, you will usually only see him for a moment and then he will disappear, which increases your fears and anxieties. And is also a great lesson. For instance, on Halloween in 1978, Laurie Strode was sitting in class, and when she glanced outside, she saw Michael standing there watching her. But when she looked back, he was gone. Later that day, while walking home with Annie Brackett, Laurie briefly saw the Shape again, but he disappeared behind a bush. And it was the 70s, so there was a lot of bush. Shortly thereafter, Laurie saw the boogeyman standing by the clothesline outside her window, but she blinked and he was no longer there. All of these situations made Laurie even more frightened. And were profound lessons from Master Michael Myers. He was revealing that it's often not reality, but thoughts and imagination that unnecessarily increase fear and suffering. This makes it very clear that fear is Michael's Yāna. Yāna is a Sanskrit word that's usually translated as vehicle. In Buddhism, Yāna means an adapted conveyance, method, or mode of practicing Dharma. For example, the Mahayana school of Buddhism has the prefix Maha, meaning great vehicle, and the Hinayana school has the prefix Hina, meaning small vehicle. Therefore, I think that the Halloween lessons from Michael Myers should be called the Fear-Ayana school of Buddhism. Because many Zen students need aggressive lessons of fear, so the boogeyman runs them over with his vehicle of fear. Even though we're still not sure where he learned how to drive. One of the reasons why I love Halloween is because I love fear. Fear is experienced, shared, sought after, and even welcomed every October. Halloween is the only socially acceptable time to embrace fear and death. As Sheriff Brackett said to Laurie Strode in 1978, "You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?" And through this Halloween fear, the Shape shows you Dharma and the reality of here and now by terrifying you, which pulls you out of your mind and puts you back into your body in the present moment. Thus, when Master Michael Myers teaches you fear, he is asking you the very fundamental question, who are you when you are afraid? In Zen, this question is called a Kōan. The Japanese word koan is a Zen term for a certain kind of story, statement, question, or riddle given by a Zen master for the student to contemplate or meditate on, with the purpose of pointing the student towards enlightenment and the nature of reality and identity. The problem is that existence is not made of words, because words are illusory human symbols and concepts that represent reality, but words are not reality itself. That's why a koan may seem to be nonsensical or paradoxical, because koans attempt to communicate that which cannot be communicated. In other words, a koan uses words to show the limits of words while pointing beyond words and logic and reasoning. Thus, the problem of any koan becomes, how do you show what is real while only using illusions? Or, how do you get rid of illusions with illusions? The boogeyman is the answer to these questions. A koan is not meant for intellectualization, because the true nature of existence is like Michael Myers, in that it cannot possibly be truly comprehended, understood, represented, or totally shown. Reality is like the shape. It is ineffable, yet it is everywhere all the time. In this way, the boogeyman, Zen, and reality itself are all beyond human conception. They can only be seen, felt, and experienced in the here and now. That's why everything Michael Myers does is a koan, which can help you get in touch with the experience of enlightened existence. Michael Myers is the shape of a koan. One famous koan question is, who is dragging this corpse around? And the boogeyman is asking you this koan by actually dragging a corpse around. However, Michael's Halloween version of this koan is much deeper than it appears, because the truth is that it's not Michael Myers dragging the corpse around. As I pointed out in Chapter 3, Michael Myers, the shape, and the boogeyman are words used to symbolize and communicate the concept of the embodiment of pure evil. But again, he is not made of words and symbols. He is made of flesh and blood and evil. On top of that, the shape has no ego identity. He is reality itself. Therefore, the boogeyman is a perfect wordless koan because he doesn't exist, and yet he is standing right behind you. Michael Myers is the shape of reality. All that being said, the corpse-dragging koan is actually pointing out that most people feel that they are inside their body and using it like a vehicle, and Myers challenges that mentality with his koans of killing. If Michael's koans were put into words, they could be, once your body dies, who is left? Or who is it that's inside your body? Or who are you when you are separated from your body? The shape is a very unique Zen master because he not only physically gives you these koans without using words, but then he actually helps you find the answers in the flesh, while he drags your corpse around. If you think that you are inside your body, the boogeyman will correct you by showing you your own corpse. But then there will be no one to show the corpse to. Maybe that's another reason why Michael tilts his head back and forth while looking at the art of his victims. If he had a thought in that moment, it might be, where did you go? Zen monk D.T. Suzuki said, quote, "It is a mistake to distinguish soul from body, mind from world, thinker from thought, seer from seen, actor from action, subject from object." End quote. And Michael Myers is a great teacher who doesn't talk about any distinctions or differentiations whatsoever. In fact, he doesn't talk about anything at all. And he does more than just point at your ineffable existence. He makes you feel reality with his knife. This means that the tool that Michael uses to wake people up isn't a knife, it's a koan. The word knife is a sound that comes out of your mouth, or it's text on a screen or letters scribbled on paper, which we have unanimously agreed represents the physical entity that we call a knife when we communicate in English. But the word knife cannot cut you. It is not a sound that Michael Myers stabs you with. It is not text on a screen that the boogeyman uses to tear through your flesh. It is not scribbles on paper that the shape scrapes against your bones. It is the sharp and deadly tool that exists only in physical reality. Thus, it is a knife, and it is not a knife. Therefore, Michael is giving you a real koan, not in words, but in the form of a real knife in real life. This knife koan put into words could be, what is a knife? Or what happens when you and the knife become one? Or where are you when the knife is in you? In every case, the boogeyman plunges the koan directly into you, over and over again. Which means that Michael Myers uses his knife to not only cut through your body, but also to cut through your thoughts, because the shape is pointing directly at reality with his very sharp koan. That's why it's extremely important to not mistake the koan nor the Zen master for the truth at which they point. In other words, you must not confuse the knife with the direction that the knife is pointing. A koan is like any Buddhist lesson. It's a valuable instruction or sign that points you towards the correct path, but it is not the destination. You must follow the direction that the sign gives you, not the sign itself. For example, a street sign can give you directions to Haddonfield, but it isn't Haddonfield itself, nor is it in Haddonfield. It just sits in the same spot, and you're supposed to follow the sign's directions, not the sign itself. Because if you follow the sign, you won't go anywhere. Therefore, do not get attached to the sign. If you do, Michael Myers will impale you on the sign. And the shape isn't the only Zen master who teaches non-attachment to the signs and teachings of Buddhism. The Buddha said, quote, "The root of suffering is attachment," end quote. And in the Diamond Sutra, he told a parable about a raft that helps you cross an expanse of water to get to the other shore where a better life is waiting. Once you get to the other shore, you no longer need the raft, so you leave it there. Vietnamese Zen monk Thich Nhat Hanh summed up the point of this parable when he said, quote, "The teaching is like a raft that carries you to the other shore. The raft is needed, but the raft is not the other shore. Use the raft to cross to the other shore, but don't hang on to it as your property. Do not become caught in the teaching. You must be able to let it go." End quote. And Michael Myers is truly a great teacher because he not only makes you get on the raft as you try to escape him and his lessons of pain, fear, and death, but he also helps you to not get attached to the raft because he drowns you in blood. In other words, much like the Buddha, the boogeyman teaches you to not hang on to any teachings. In fact, Master Michael Myers makes you let go and become unattached to all things, because it's impossible to hold on to anything when you're dead. For example, the shape literally hung Bob on a knife, which helped Bob to not get metaphorically hung up on anything. Thus, another knife koan from Michael Myers is, how can you be hung up on a knife? And then he shows you the answer. Renowned Taoist Zhuangzi said of non-attachment, quote, "The fish trap exists because of the fish. Once you've gotten the fish, you can forget the trap. The rabbit snare exists because of the rabbit. Once you've gotten the rabbit, you can forget the snare. Words exist because of meaning. Once you've gotten the meaning, you can forget the words." End quote. And the shape shows us this same concept. The butcher knife exists because of the flesh. Once you've cut the flesh, you can forget the knife. Or use it to hang up the flesh art. In other words, physical reality is not based on concepts, so once you get the lessons from Michael Myers, you can let go of all concepts and lessons. Chuang-Tzu finishes the aforementioned paragraph by asking, quote, "Where can I find a man who has forgotten words so I can talk with him?" End quote. The boogeyman is that man beyond all words, and he teaches wordless knife koans because he is unattached to words and all other things. Michael Myers is the shape of non-attachment. Side note, non-attachment is not the same as not caring, because you can care about your life and do everything you can and try really hard to survive while not being attached and knowing that you cannot possibly survive the shape of death. Zen is so centered on non-attachment that it's even focused on becoming unattached to Zen itself. Zen masters constantly refer to the teachings as a finger pointing at the moon, where the moon is the whole point and you should not mistake the finger for the moon. Also, definitely do not get attached to the finger, nor the direction in which it points. If you do become attached to the finger, Michael Myers will cut the finger off. In fact, the shape will sever all fingers so that you will not be attached to any fingers. In the 2018 timeline of the Halloween legend, Michael Myers had 2 of his fingers shot off by Laurie Strode's shotgun, and it barely slowed him down. The boogeyman is so unattached to all things that he isn't even attached to his own fingers. Literally. And that is very Zen. The shape is a great unattached Zen master and teacher. And yes, he is violent, but many Zen masters and teachers have been violent. Michael Myers isn't even the only Zen master willing to cut fingers off in order to teach a lesson. Whenever Zen master Gutte was asked a question about Zen, he would simply raise his finger. At some point, a boy attendant started imitating this behavior so that whenever someone asked the boy what Master Gutte taught, he would also simply raise his finger. When Gutte found out about this, he cut the boy's finger off. The boy ran away crying, but Gutte stopped him and raised his finger. When the boy saw the finger, he became enlightened. In the same way, Michael Myers would cut off your finger without any hesitation, because he is teaching a similar form of detached enlightenment. The boogeyman helps you get in touch with your heart by showing you your own heart. And I think it's very profound that Michael Myers wants to touch all of our hearts. The problem is that the shape is so advanced beyond us in Zen that we don't understand many of his lessons. But we often don't understand Zen teachers, and that's usually the point. Was Master Gutte a bad person for helping the boy become enlightened? Was his means too mean to justify the end? Enlightenment is an extremely rare occurrence, yet human fingers are not rare at all. Most people have 10 of them. Which means that when Gutte was alive in the 9th century, there were over 2 billion human fingers on Earth. So what if 1 finger out of 2 billion was chopped off? The result was that the boy became enlightened. Not to mention that he still had 9 other fingers. To me, 1 finger is clearly worth the price of enlightenment. I would gladly give up a finger to be enlightened. Michael Myers gave up 2 of his. The boogeyman teaches that any finger can be a koan pointing you in the right direction, but the finger itself is not the direction nor the destination. Furthermore, the shape shows that no matter where the severed finger lands, it's still pointing in the direction of Zen, because Zen is everywhere, just like the shape. Therefore, don't be attached to your fingers, nor the idea of losing a finger, or even enlightenment itself. In this way, you can give the finger to enlightenment, just as Michael Myers did. You can be unattached to all things, exactly like the boogeyman. D.T. Suzuki said, quote, "Enlightenment is emancipation from all things," end quote, and the shape emancipates you from everything. Michael Myers teaches the Zen lesson that there's nothing to be attached to, especially life itself, because life is temporary and cannot be held on to no matter what you do. The shape proves this by tearing people away from their desperate clinging to life. In other words, the boogeyman makes people become unattached to life. Literally and metaphorically. And not being attached to anything is so important in Zen because everything is change. I will talk more about this later, but the point is to not bother grasping or holding on to anything because it's futile and you will merely lose a finger or two, which, according to Michael Myers, is fine. Moreover, many people have violently lost larger body parts than fingers in their search for enlightenment. And some of them weren't even students, victims of the shape. When Bodhidharma brought Zen from India to China, he refused to teach Dazu Huike. Huike waited outside Bodhidharma's cave all night in the snow, and in the morning, Bodhidharma still refused to teach him. Huike then chopped off his own arm and presented it to Bodhidharma as an offering of his sincerity and a token of his resolve. At that moment, Bodhidharma accepted him as a student, and Huike later became the second founding master of Zen in China. But you don't need to chop off your arm to get Michael Myers to teach you, because he will chop off your arm for you. Furthermore, you don't need to seek him out at all, because the shape will find you, and he will teach you his lessons even if you don't ask him to. In fact, the boogeyman will continue to teach you even when you beg him to stop. After losing his arm, Huike asked Bodhidharma to pacify his mind, so Bodhidharma said, "Show me your mind so I can pacify it." Huike said, "When I look for my mind, I cannot find it." Bodhidharma responded, "There, your mind is pacified." But again, you don't need to ask Michael Myers to pacify your mind because he will do it for you by showing you your brain where your mind is supposed to be. Then, when you literally look for your mind in the flesh of your brain, you won't be able to find it, and this will pacify your mind. Because you will no longer have a mind. In other words, the shape will help you get out of your head by showing you your own head. Michael Myers teaches you that trying to pacify your mind with your own mind is like trying to wash blood off your hands with blood. It's futile and pointless, and Michael will just keep adding more blood. Or he will simply chop off your hands. Which is Michael's answer to Zen Master Hakuin's incredibly famous koan, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" The boogeyman will cut off one of your hands so that you can find out. To be enlightened is to wake up to the nature of reality and your true self. The word Buddha literally means awakened one, and it comes from the Sanskrit root bud, which means to awaken. So Buddha is not a name for a specific person, it's a title for anyone who is awake. And Michael Myers appears to be a Zen master and teacher who is awake to the thusness or suchness of existence. Ta-ta-ta. Ta-ta-ta. Therefore, I believe that Michael Myers is the shape of a Buddha. He puts the boo in Buddha. And the boogeyman doesn't care if you try to kill him. Which is also very Zen. For instance, in the 9th century, Zen Master Rinzai said the controversial koan, quote, "If you meet the Buddha, kill him," end quote. This koan was not only meant to violently shock you out of your normal way of complacent thinking, it's also a reminder to not be attached to any Buddha figure nor to Buddhism itself. So, if you meet the Buddha, kill him. And since Michael Myers is the shape of a Buddha, the Halloween version of Rinzai's koan is, if you meet Michael Myers, kill him. Dr. Loomis consistently gave this koan to everyone he could, but no one has been able to solve this ultimate Halloween Zen koan. Just ask Laurie Strode or anyone else from Haddonfield how hard it is to kill Michael Myers. But Master Rinzai's koan about killing the Buddha is also a reminder that you should not be seeking a separate Buddha outside yourself. You should be awakening the Buddha within. If you search outside yourself for a Buddha, the shape will tear you open and show you where you should be looking. Here again, you should follow the direction in which Michael's knife is pointing, inside you. To reiterate the importance of this point, Zen Master Dogen warned, quote, "If we seek Buddha outside the self, the Buddha changes into a devil," end quote. Perhaps that is why Dr. Loomis says Michael has the devil's eyes. Because Michael Myers is the shape of the devil. Okay, ghosts and goblins, that was my first draft of Chapter 5 of Zen and the Art of Halloween. Stick around to the end of this video to see my bloopers because they are honestly the best part. But first, hit that subscribe button to follow me the way Michael Myers followed Annie Brackett. And if you enjoyed this video, please hide in the back seat of the like button's car and then strangle it and slice its throat the way the shape did with Annie. Be sure to check out the other chapters to put this one in context, and please comment below to let me know what you liked or tell me everything you hated and what you want the boogeyman to do to me as punishment. Also, please comment any corrections you have if you think I made a mistake, or if you have any suggestions or additions, I'd love to hear them. Also, let me know if you'd like to see me perform a 1-hour version of this thesis live, or if you think I should publish it as a book, or if you want me to burn it with fire and never speak of it again, leave a comment. I truly appreciate every single like, share, comment, and subscription, and I will respond to all of the comments. One last thing, if you could please share this with anyone you know who's a fan of Halloween, Zen, art, or comedy, and especially if you know anyone who's a fan of all four, please share this with them. Thank you for watching, happy Halloween, and now enjoy my bloopers. I have shared and as Sheriff Brackett said to Laurie Strode, I'm broken. You know, it's Halloween. I guess similarly, the book Michael Myers not only for example, so what if not? To me, it's impossible to hang on to in Buddhism with the purpose of pointing the student towards the face him and in the sati they could be everything Michael Myers does is a koan. What am I doing? Stop it. This means that the word knife, the word knife is a sound that comes out of your mouth. Another knife koan from Michael Myers. The shape is a great Zen master and teacher. He puts the boo in Buddha. No matter what you do, no matter what you do. The problem is that and it was the 70s, so there was a lot of bush. And it was and it was the 70s, so there was a lot of bush. And it was the 70s, so there was a lot of bush. And it was the 70s, so there was a lot of bush. It is a mistake. Michael Myers is the shape of reality. Dharma is like the boogeyman. Quote, emancipation, nope, that's not it, nope. Quote, nope. Not what he said. Nope. Annie Brackett. In other words, a koan. The shape is a fuck. And he makes you fuck. What? You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh? Ah!